Let's put Lee Kuan Yew's passing into perspective. I'm joined by Ali Wyne from Wikistrat, an organization that runs simulations of likely international events and trends. He is also a global fellow at the Project for the Study of the 21st Century. Ali, with Lee's death, where do you see the trend in Singapore in terms of the economy, also politics?
I think that the economy is going to continue to flourish, and it's actually a testament to Lee Kuan Yew's leadership that the economic challenges that Singapore faces are the types of economic challenges most countries would crave to have. Income inequality, unaffordable housing in certain quarters, but not existential economic challenges. I think that Singapore will continue to flourish economically. On the political side is where I think that there are more questions. I think that a growing cohort of Singaporeans, particularly on the youthful side, question whether one-party authoritarianism or heavy-handedness is the way to go. And I think that many Singaporeans want to retain the achievements that Lee Kuan Yew registered in Singapore, but experience more liberalism and pluralism.
Of course, Lee is known for turning Singapore into a global financial center, an economic powerhouse. What do you attribute to his success? What made his strategy so workable in the region?
Well, there are a few factors. I would say the first is that he's often called a proponent of Asian values, and it's true that he was certainly no proponent of Western-style democracy, but far from being sort of an unblinkered proponent of Asian values, he was above all a pragmatist. And Lee Kuan Yew, he famously said on many occasions, he didn't have much patience for political science or theories of governance. He wanted to do what worked. And so Lee Kuan Yew approached governance in Singapore with realism, with pragmatism, and really with cold analytical skills. So pragmatism is number one. He also was able to contrive a sense of unity in Singapore by making English the working language. So when you go to Singapore now, there are many individuals who speak languages other than English, but everybody can speak English. And so out of a fractious society, he was able to contrive a sense of unity. The last factor, or certainly one of the main factors I would attribute to Singapore's success, is that Lee Kuan Yew very actively courted investment by multinational corporations. You have to remember that in the 1960s and 1970s, this is when there's a wave of decolonization occurring, and many of Singapore's counterparts, newly independent counterparts in the developing world, they shunned multinational corporations' investment as a tool of imperialism from which they had just extracted themselves. Lee Kuan Yew said practically, Singapore doesn't have any natural resources, and without this investment, our economy will collapse. So while many of his neighbors were actually shunning this investment, he courted it. So I guess in balance, I would say Lee Kuan Yew was a pragmatist, and Lee Kuan Yew, you see what he's accomplished. He was able to take a fledgling, poor, corrupt city-state and within a generation make it into a first-world commercial and diplomatic hub.
What about his influence beyond the region, beyond Singapore, China, for example?
China is a remarkable example, and I would commend Ezra Vogel's biography on Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping, of course, being the father of modern Singapore. And it's very interesting, if you read Ezra Vogel's biography, when Deng Xiaoping was contemplating embarking on the economic reforms that would, of course, propel China's economic growth for the next roughly 30 to 35 years, where did he go for counsel and for advice? He went to Singapore, and he went to Lee Kuan Yew, and he asked, how can I replicate, at least to some extent, in China what you've done for Singapore? So clearly, Lee Kuan Yew had an impact in counseling leaders in China. He had an impact in counseling leaders in India, and even actually in Central Asia. The leaders of Kazakhstan sought out his counsel. So Lee Kuan Yew, despite presiding over a country that it's very small, it's not even 700 square kilometers, he had a very outsized influence both at home and abroad.
Ali Wyne, thank you so much, sir, for your time.
My pleasure.